And won't you join us on this encounter when we talk to Jeff Selver, a contactee, experiencer, author, and public speaker.
And the aliens have access to some, they have access to the afterlife. They have access to the unadulterated higher self, or the oversoul of the human. And then they can find a way to funnel that into an individual's experience when there's an agreement to make that happen. And that's what this was. So there were 7 contact events before, leading up to it. And then once it got initiated and I started traveling, there was a ton of contact events afterwards. The person who hasn't interacted with them doesn't get how you might never be normal ever again. So there's a desire on both parties. The individual having contact might not be aware of the own oversoul that's saying, don't disrupt my guy's life. Instead of thinking of it that they're from our linear time and they're being very secretive, they're actually in a different time and they're coming back and they're interjecting and they're putting something in. They're putting a contact event in, and then they're watching the outcome, the outshoot of that contact event. That's the perspective I think they now have, and they're looking at things from a future perspective and then watching as it unfolds, creating an alternate timeline. I think that's it sounds bonkers, but I'm pretty certain that's exactly what's going on. This freaking thing, it's tall too. It's a tall gray alien, and it flies up to my buddy's face, like it flies up, and I'm panicking inside this frozen state. And I'm literally saying, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And I don't even know how to compute it. And it's like right into his face, and it's looking into his eyes. And then I know what's going to happen. That thing is going to come here and look at me in my eyes, or do the same thing. And it does. Oh, it is 100% physical. It is also 100% dimensional. It's the problem is that we are too.
Yeah.
So we have a frame of reference of reality that's skewed. That's the truth. That's exactly what this is. It's a 50-50. We're dealing with a actual biological species that has DNA that 100% can phase, can turn into plasma orbs, and its original content, its original form might just be as a plasma entity. That's what they're up against, these aliens, right? Because if you do that prematurely to the human, it freaks them out and it can cause damage. So people need these type of experiences, but they need them naturally on their own.
The following program is presented for general information, education and entertainment purposes only, and is not intended to be advice of any kind. The content, views, thoughts and opinions expressed in this program are those of the individuals involved. The use of information on this program is at the user's own discretion.
Reverend Stu, how are you, man?
Hey, I'm okay. We're about to pull out of winter here and into spring, and I can see some flowers about to come out in the church garden here, which is absolutely beautiful. Looking forward to it.
Oh, nice. We are in the heart of summer here, although it's difficult to know that by the coast here in SoCal, because it's honestly, with the exception of this week, it's been a little bit cooler than normal, but we're in like a little heat wave type of deal. I'm liking it, the warmth. And actually just last week or so, I went out with a friend to Landers, California, and I got to enjoy the warm, dry desert. It was great. Absolutely phenomenal.
Wow, that sounds awesome. We've got some amazing deserts here too, Mike. Good environment.
One of these days, hopefully I can get out to see you in person and we can explore those together as well. That would be awesome.
Wow, that's our own contact in the desert right there.
I love it. Let's do it. Contact in the Desert, Australian version, right? That'd be something. Right.
I'm up for that. Now, also, it's a full moon as we film this episode. And I find that topic very interesting on an esoteric level, so I'm hoping at some point we can delve into that with one of the guests.
Well, maybe this guest particularly may have something to say about that. This guy Jeff Selver, he's my kind of guy. Okay. He comes from a professional background. He used to be in the banking world and was a motivational speaker and a corporate trainer, as it were. So I can really relate to him on that level because, myself and you, we both work in professional services as well. And I think it's pretty cool that I'm sure he's not necessarily the only one or the first one, but for someone from that background to come forward, he's an experiencer contactee, and we're going to get into that real soon. But what do you think about that?
I like that. It seems to add a little bit of cred, a little bit of credentials. So I bet you he's a good speaker. and he's articulate. I'm very interested in this one, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get into that, I just want to say real quickly that if you're out there anywhere in the world, really, if you've seen something, if you've experienced something, report it to MUFON, MUFON.com, or SoCalMUFON.com is the local chapter that I'm part of. But it's important to do that. Like, there are other avenues or places out there you can report to, and by all means report them there too, but also report them to MUFON in addition to, because the majority of the places that you report are not going to contact you. MUFON is one of the few that will, and we have the largest database that we can reference as well. And one of the main reasons is there might be other people out there who are waiting for you to report, because they've reported and they know that other people were witnessing it, but until those other people come forward, there's not really that corroboration or closure that they're looking for.
Very nice. That's a whole level of functionality I didn't realize was important there, Mike. So thank you. And I would encourage people out there to make their reports too.
Exactly. And also, if you wanted to join our conversation as well, we were recently somebody reached out to us to potentially connect us with somebody else. And I think that's awesome. Not sure yet. I got to investigate it a little bit. It's pretty cool conversation that will likely happen, but I do want to keep focused on our main, core of what we're talking about. So we'll see how all that goes. But the fact that that's even happening, I think, is great. And there's some stuff happening around the world right now that everyone's sort of congealing about. But anyway, I feel like we're getting long-winded. Let's talk about our guest here, shall we?
All right, Mike, I'm ready.
So Jeff Selver, I met him at Contact in the Desert in 2025. I was actually volunteering at the New Paradigm booth, and he comes up to me. I don't think he recognized me or knew who I was per se, but at the time, I didn't realize how great it was. He gave me a copy of his book. It's called The Rising. The Rising and the Alien Plan to Build an Enlightened City on Earth. I'm not saying that this is true, but if it is, I could think that's a really good reason why the governments of the world don't want to give out any information, because this would effectively make them all irrelevant and useless. But nonetheless, I didn't reach out to him because he gave me a free copy of the book. I reached out to him because his story is freaking fascinating. So we're going to talk about it with him.
Oh, that's very interesting. The government's already pretty much useless anyway, Mike.
Right? People need to remember that they're not leaders; they're elected representatives. I don't care where you are in the world or what governmental system you have. Those are people who are elected to represent you. You are their boss. You pay their paycheck. They work for you. They're your employees, and that's something that everyone needs to remember. Anyway, I get off my soapbox for a second here. Jeff Selver, with an MBA and a passion for management and leadership, Jeff worked in banks and corporate training as a motivational speaker and teacher, teaching mindful leadership. So, that's why I say I really resonate with him already. He has been under the tutelage of a Vedic teacher for over 20 years, where he learned Vedic philosophy and meditation. When his memories of alien contact came out, Jeff began presenting on his contact events in UFO groups, sharing his story in detail, and providing research and corroboration with other experiencers. He currently resides in Vancouver, British Columbia with his spouse. So that's, exactly what we were just talking about earlier, to provide corroboration for others. Just come forward and tell your story. And of course, it's all confidential when you do it through those channels. Anyway, the book that we're going to talk about is, The Rising. In December of 1997, Jeff experienced the Rising, which was an agreement with gray aliens to discover his soul. I'm going to pause there for a moment for you to chime in here.
Mike, that's some heavy stuff right there. I got a lot of things, a lot of questions I want to ask about that. Geez, because I've not worried, let me use a different word. I've been questioning what the motives of some of these gray aliens are. So I want to delve into this one for sure.
Okay. So the Rising, and this is something that is going to be interesting too, because in one of our first couple episodes, I said specifically, this is not what this is, but this is talk about going all in. The Rising required him to take a leap of faith, sell all of his possessions, and begin a life traveling from place to place. what unfolds is truly an epic adventure of removal from society and living close to nature, all while having contact with gray aliens without his knowing. In summary, it is 26 contact events with gray aliens told in amazing detail and spread out from years 1993 to 2017. So fundamentally, Jeff was shown that what humans understand about spirituality, life after death, dimensions, God, the soul, and psychic powers are just the beginning of what these beings are all about, and that their capacity, understanding, and utilization of these is much greater than humans can imagine. Jeff's story shows that the only way we can ever be able to understand the grays is to understand the power of our own personal spiritual potential.
Wow, that's really big, Mike. I got a lot of questions. I might delve into some uncomfortable stuff in this conversation. We'll see how we go. But for a while, I've wondered if the Greys are just AI, and that's why they don't seem to exhibit any feelings. So I wonder if they're just kind of analyzing us. But oh wow, I'm like, okay, let's see where we go with this one.
Yeah, we're gonna get. I think we get uncomfortable in every conversation, but let's get uncomfortable. I feel like Jeff is sort of a strong enough guy that he'll be open to that aspect of it. And what I mean by that is, like, if I were to be talking with somebody where they're just exploring their own experiences for the first time, I'm likely not to be asking some of the questions I'm probably going to be asking right now. And I'm doing that because Jeff has had decades to resolve this and reconcile it, and he's publicly speaking about it. So it's different. When you first talk about it, you know, I'm always going to be gentle with people, but when they've really, you know, worked it out, then I could ask maybe some more tougher questions that I wouldn't necessarily ask someone who's just, you know, exploring it, if that makes any sense.
You know what I like about that, Mike? We're a lot of shows in now, a lot of episodes into this show, and I think I'm ready to ask some more of these hard-hitting questions. And I hope no one watching thinks, well, Stuart's a minister. Of course he's going to be against the grey aliens. It's not that exactly. I just want to understand, you know, and I want to check on the motives of these beings. So I do have some tough questions to ask. I'll be gentle about it.
No, I think it's great, and definitely just let it all out, as it were. I've read about halfway through the book, and I'm convinced enough that we're going to have an awesome conversation. So I don't know the ending yet, but I think that you might be surprised that I don't even know what questions you're going to ask, but I think it's going to be great.
Okay, I'm absolutely intrigued now, Mike, because you're partway into that book of his. So yeah, I definitely want to see where this goes.
Yeah. So, and also, I think it's kind of cool that instead of calling these things episodes, we're going to call them from this point forward encounters.
Oh, I like that.
So
Perfect.
we have a slightly new schedule now, because because we're going to be putting these out every other Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific time. So whatever that translates for you. This way, a majority of the world has most of the weekend to digest our encounters.
All right, that's smart. I like that very much.
So welcome one and all, wherever and whenever you may be. This is Universal Disclosure Meeting the Moment. My name is Mike, an active UAP field investigator in Southern California, with my friend and co-host,
Reverend Stu in Melbourne, Australia.
And won't you join us on this encounter when we talk to Jeff Selver, a contactee, experiencer, author, and public speaker. So, Jeff, thanks so much for your time in visiting with us today. We're looking forward to we're actually now calling these encounters. We're looking forward to having an encounter with you.
Nice. That's great. Yeah, Mike and Stuart, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Because I said in the intro, I'm assuming that you didn't really know about this channel before, but you gave me a copy of your book at Contact in the Desert.
That's right.
And I started reading it, and it's a fascinating story. So it's like, Stuart, we got to talk to this guy. This is awesome. So I'm excited that you're able to take some time with us. So
that's great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, it was great seeing you there, and I remember I very much remember the moment. So yeah, and I know the booth that you were at and everything. So it's really great. Yeah.
Awesome. So a bunch of questions. The questions I have are going to be like sort of jumping around, as it were. They're not in a specific order, but to get us started, and then from there, feel free to gallop into, just like a version of the overall story, as it were, so that it'll make sense for other questions that we ask or whatnot. But
sure.
What really pushed you over the edge to sell all of your stuff and go into the wild, as it were. And was that really necessary for the journey?
Yeah, right. Okay. So there is something missing from the story in the book, and I had to be very cautious about what that is. And it's a I can't say it here because to do so would it would require a lot of discussion. But what should be known is I'm about to put out the video series I'm putting out that started this week on my YouTube channel. Actually, it's just time to kind of talk about it because I now found good references. Let's just say that they're how do I frame this? So I just finished reading Jacques Vallée's Dimensions, and I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he's done a really good job at perusing our history, our human history, with an eye for did some type of extra dimensional entities interact with humanity, and let's just say that I picked up a book that I think, at least I have found evidence for myself, was another group who was actually interacting with non-human intelligence entities and gets conveyed as absurdity. And that's what Villay really points out. You see in these typical scenarios of some type of entities interacting with humanity, there's an absurdity to the story. So in the moment you might have someone having a divine revelation, while when they start conveying that divine revelation, it comes off as absurd to the people in the moment. And you have maybe a game here where the entities want us to choose intuitively to trust this person or to not. And Villay points out a bunch of great stories that seem to convey a similar pattern in ancient history. And one of them was the Book of Mormon. And the kind of, there's absurdity around it because it had information that we can now say, anthropologically didn't make any sense. But it does seem to be that this guy was interacting with some type of divine entities or some angels of light kind of idea. And there were some, there was time disparity like there is for the abduction phenomenon. So Villay does a really good job of pointing those content out. And the book that I picked up is definitely people who interacted with some type of entities. Now, I won't go into that, but the video series will do it because I lay out all that information so the skeptical mind you would see it once you put it together. The bottom line is the message of that book was to get rid of all your attachments. And then you put all your energy towards God. And you do it within. And it's a scale of detachment that sounds very, it sounds very crazy. And the reality is it kind of was at the time. But if you read the book, something was going on with me about the message and I had to follow it. And if I didn't, I felt like I was not following my own spirit, my own heart. And there was this, something had happened to me. That's the bottom line. And I couldn't deny that. I couldn't deny that something had happened to me. So, and I painted out pretty clearly in the book, I resisted this message. And when I did, I eventually found I was denying myself. I was denying my own spirits. And I couldn't make sense of that. That's the reality of, I now learned that the phenomenon interacts with your soul, interacts with your spirit. But at the time, I didn't have references like that. I only was a 20-year-old who spirituality is this new agey type thing and could be religious. And then on top of it, you would never imagine that an alien content or something very alien-like could spark up a soul in the way that it did, and then provide a message to abandon your life. And so I think it was necessary because there was a physical transformation. And I try to dialogue that physical transformation in this new video series. I really emphasize it because the content that I read was actually about physical transformation. And when you actually abandon your life the way you do, you kind of snap, I think, a DNA thing inside of you. And I think that it triggered part of that physical transformation was this kind of, the trauma of abandoning your life and then putting all that energy into an awareness for God alters your body. And that's what the book talked about. And that's what happened to me. And so there was a link now. So yeah, I think I had to do it. And by doing so, I also that intense detachment all these years later is part of the security I have in my own spirit. So yeah, I had to. I had to do it.
Mike, that's very much in line with the message of the Buddha and the Christ too. So I can 100% resonate with what you're saying there,
You
Jeff.
got it. It is the book. I can't mention who it is, but they referred to Jesus all the time, and they were for them that was their inspiration. Was he demonstrated that that type of detachment, and so they were living to that type of detachment, and you got it. There's something very soul based about dedicating yourself to your spirit and removing everything, and I mean everything, every identity you ever were, and now you're saying I am this other thing, and it's a very profound spiritual place to be in. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to wonder, is there a way to do a hybrid version of that, like a 50-50? Because I mean, I've thought about occasionally similar things, but I know that I would never do it because I like the creature comforts of the world and everything. But is there a way to explore in the way that you did without getting rid of everything?
Yeah, like is I think the thing for me to say is people need to you have to listen to yourself in a with information like that. And I think that maybe some people that's perfect for them to kind of make a jump like that. And if you look at my life at that time, right, my parents literally left. My friends, I was kind of feeling like I wasn't connecting with them. I didn't like my school anymore. There was all these synchronistic moments in my life that showed me this message is for you. And eventually I listened, and I would agree with that. But maybe it's not right for everybody on their path. So I think the idea is to be inspired by it and take from it what you will. And if some people, maybe that's not their path right now because they're taking care of someone and they feel, and that could be your soul telling you to do that. So I think that's the idea, is to kind of listen to your own spirit in these moments, especially with extreme detachment. But I have a workbook and I kind of talk about detachment in it. And this is the sannyasins, this is the monks, right? This is the purpose, is to remove your identity. So remove and move into a different type of commitment to the spirit while you're kind of taking away those detachments. So there's other ways of going about it. And the walkabout in the Aboriginal and the Indigenous for Australia that had the walkabout, and it's the same idea, right? Taking that 16-year-old and putting them into the forest. These are all examples. And I think that maybe, it's take from it what your spirit is inspired to, and let your spirit tell you what to do.
Okay.
Just for clarity, please, Jeff, did the contact happen prior to this period or after this period?
Yeah. So the story goes, I made an agreement with them at 16, and then there were 7 contact events that kind of built up to that moment. And that's why when I'm given that message, something extraordinary comes out. It is not anything. It's my spirit, but it's like the unadulterated spirit. There's no words. There's no scriptures that describe this properly for me, and it's something now I understand. It was the contact, and the aliens have access to they have access to the afterlife. They have access to the unadulterated higher self, or the oversoul of the human, and then they can find a way to funnel that into an individual's experience when there's an agreement to make that happen. And that's what this was. So there were 7 contact events before, leading up to it, and then once it got initiated and I started traveling, there was a ton of contact events afterwards. So it's really this kind of experiment that they had done. I call it an experiment, but I don't think it was experimental for them. But it was for me. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, because, and I'm not saying one way or the other, but there's a lot of experiencers who, when they look into it, sometimes they regress, sometimes not, but they come to the discovery that they had some type of an agreement before they were even born or incarnated here. Would you say that's similar to you, or was it more for you that it was when you were 16? That's like you made the agreement then when you were here. I'm just kind of curious because I've heard a lot of times people have the agreement before they get here. For you, it sounds like it may be a little bit different. I don't know. Can you maybe clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, no, I definitely made my oversoul before I was born made an agreement to interact with them. But then it's like they kind of needed this guy's agreement. So yeah, there's a moment in the 16 contact when I'm 16 years old, and they actually want my logical 16-year-old brain to say yes. So yeah, and then when I do, they show me through an afterlife vision. It's all kind of laid out in the book and throughout videos. Been very public about this experience, and in that afterlife vision, it's my oversoul in the afterlife before I was born, and they're showing it to me like on holograms, and I'm having a shared experience with the higher self. And yeah, and part of that is showing that they were there, that they're in the afterlife, and that agreement is made in that moment. And so then it all makes sense to the 16-year-old in the moment. Okay, right. That's why they're interacting with me. That's why they're doing that. That's why they wanted that permission from me, because they'd actually already got it from a deeper part of myself. Yeah. And so I agree with that. But I think the degree with which what they were going to do with me also required me to be consciously in agreement with them as a 16-year-old of my brain. The physical tissue 16-year-old identity needed to also have that agreement alongside the higher self.
Okay, so that was so I'm going to jump ahead with one of my questions, and this is one of the ones that I told you earlier might have been maybe one of the more difficult ones. But when you were being shown these memories, do you think they were really memories, or could they have been sort of planted in you, almost like a programming in the moment, to try to get your to agree?
Yeah, I know. This is the grand belief of deception, that could he be confused? Could the gray aliens be so powerful that they could, confuse you with all this stuff? And the reality is for someone to answer that properly, they have to know what their soul is. And the traveling period should be the one to show, the public, hopefully, that, I think this is the way to frame it for myself. There's only one thing that should be the highest pinnacle peak of your confidence of what your soul is your ability to move the universe. Right. So when you're relying on your consciousness and you're able to make things manifest, or there are synchronicities, when you're relying on that intuition and you're in these kind of states of intuition and you're able to manifest, or it goes in the right direction that you knew it would, even though you had everything against you saying it would. So you're relying on your heart. And that gives you a confidence, that gives you a degree of knowing what's real and what's not. And that's what I saw in the afterlife vision. So I've proven it to myself. I already know that is what was real. And now the trick is that I've got all these years later, I've been able to, there are such things as between life regressions. And so there has been work done on trying to, can people access that? And maybe this awareness gives me that ability, and it has. And so I've gone back in to confirm these details. And yeah, those are real events. What I say is that they are real events, and then it's kind of like Photoshop. Like they are so, these are so advanced entities. They can take real events, even in other dimensions, when you're in another dimension in the afterlife, and then they can splice it, and they can take out the parts that they don't want, and they can cut out things, and then have you just focusing on, this imagery of this higher self and these gray aliens. Yeah, I know it sounds, I also think because the public would think that because it sounds like it's fake, and just the idea of seeing content like this on a craft. But yeah, man, it is, I've already gone down that avenue a long time ago, and I've proven to myself that the oversoul was real, the agreement is real, and then everything I saw was real. Yeah.
Okay, I'm kind of curious too. When I believe in the book you mentioned that these memories sort of came back to you over time, and they just kind of sort of, I don't want to use the word, I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my perspective, like they sort of randomly just showed up and you started remembering bits and pieces. Have you ever gone through a regression at all, or not? I'm just curious about that too.
Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't quite like that. So now again, I've been very public about how that's all kind of transpired. And so it started with a screen memory. The screen memory cracked open a location that I had a contact event, and that flooded with the previous one. So it was the second contact event that it flooded open. And when it did that, it's like the trail of memories of stuff that had happened before that also flooded open. So then the first contact event. So I had imageries of the first and second contact event, which also included the childhood stuff. So all of a sudden I have this, and I didn't know what it all was. I didn't know what I was going to be learning. At the time, I hadn't done any regressions. And all of a sudden, I'm now having memories of what happens next. So there was a third contact event. And I keep thinking only one thing happened. And then, okay, there's only 3 contact events. Okay. And then you're like, holy crap. And then there was a 5th. And then I missed the 4th. And it turned out like a week later, you're like, holy crap. I'm reviewing journals and there's this other weird event. All of a sudden, there's a flashback from that. And like, holy crap. So it's kind of like once I touched the frequency or the dimensional space of these entities, it started to flood things in when I started zeroing in on what it was, my teenage years. And yeah, so I had flashbacks. I had broken memories is the best way to frame it. And then I did regressions on those broken memories. What was the origins of these? When did they occur? In some cases, I didn't understand the location. I didn't know I had broken memories, but I didn't have any location. And so I proved to myself the effectiveness of that regression by the locations coming out and the geophysical locations, and forgetting that I had done a hike, and forgetting that I had been under power lines in a hike, forgetting that this hike had power lines. So stuff like that came out that I forgot about all these years later, proving the regression's effectiveness. And so every single one of them with all these broken flashback memories, I conducted hypnotic regressions on them to piece it all together to get the larger picture of what had occurred.
That power line motif comes up a bit. I've seen it before. It was even represented in Twin Peaks by David Lynch. Do you know what that is?
No, it's interesting. I have heard this before too, and I haven't delved into it in any way. The 5th contact event, I'm under power lines when I'm taken. And the second contact event is very close to power lines. It's this park that was set up right beside power lines. So it's very interesting to say that. And I don't know what that connection could be. And it could be frequency or like electromagnetic. I don't really know. Yeah.
Now, I actually believe what you're saying, so I don't doubt what you're saying here. The thing is I want to explore is the motive of these beings. And I'm going to bring something up which is a bit sensitive. So in the esoteric community, people are concerned that the tunnel, the light, when we pass over, might be a trick where these entities present themselves as our dead relatives, pretending to be them in order to trick us into reincarnating again. Now, what are your thoughts on that? Have you heard that concept before?
Of course, I've heard that before, yeah. And I actually have a good video that I just put out Friday that actually addresses all this. And there's so many ways to approach this, but the first and foremost is that all the evidence is in. So all the naysayers need to stop. That the evidence is the human brain moves into dimensional spaces that it can't comprehend. Timelessness, you can't even understand that. So you're moving into dimensional realms your brain has no ability to comprehend in. And so what's happening is the human ape mind is getting all fear-based, right? They're getting terrified. Oh my God, there's probably another hell that we didn't really believe in, but now there must be a hell somewhere out there. I don't know where it is. We're going to find it, right? They're using this fear-based mentality. And I mean, the evidence is in. The evidence is in from just near-death experience research that people don't go into this dimension and experience terror. They don't experience any of this stuff. And yeah, you're right. So what's happening is I'm finding all the people who are just looking at paper research, and then they're making deductions. Well, they've skipped the part where all the unity was experienced. They skipped the part where all the love is experienced, and they look for the deception. They look for that grand entity they see. That must be an alien, evil alien tricking the mind of the individual who's experiencing love, bliss, and unity. And as a person who works to experience love, bliss, and unity in this life, I'm very aware of how difficult the mind makes it to experience that. So the human, even looking at all this content and the research on paper, is just bypassing all the bliss content and is going right for the evil alien part. And because it makes them feel good, because people want to be terrified, and that's how they want to live. And but the reality is my personal knowledge about what's going on. That is your higher self. And the higher, yeah, and maybe in some cases, I would believe that loved ones come to make that transition smooth, and I don't doubt that. And I mean, someone actually commented about this on my YouTube channel, and I said, okay, so for the thousands of years, all the yogis were wrong. How about, why doesn't, when a loved one passes away, they come back and warn you? Why is there no erroneous, evidence anywhere for this evil machine going on that we somehow have missed somewhere? Never mind the yogis who were able to astral project for thousands of years, and also, finding cooperation with remote viewers, but never mentioning this evil machine going on. So yeah, there is a machine. There is a birth and death life cycle that you're wanting to partake in, and you desire it, and you are not you when you are caught up in your dramas and believing that this is the evil hell that you've kind of, what power can there be in the human who doesn't know how to change their existence? Right? What power there's no power then. If the human is caught in a circumstance that they don't know how to get themselves out of, then you can't evolve. And all nature, moves through with resistance. And that's the same with the spirit. We have to learn to be our divine selves in our challenges. And that's what the higher self wants from us. That's what the oversoul is desiring from us. And everyone who makes a little theory about the oversoul, being a threatening evil demon alien is caught in their dramas, and they're just projecting that the drama comes back up to them in the afterlife. And I mean, to do that, there's no, it's just comical to me, because it's omitting all the other information. It's omitting that people have been experiencing unity for thousands of years, the yogis and the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, and even Jesus, me and my God are one, right? Like all that's out the window then. Right? That's the bottom line. And they would believe that to be out the window because they had themselves haven't experienced that unity, that love, that recognition that there's another dimensional way, another dimensional perspective of physical life on Earth. And as long as we continue to think that we own the perspective of the universe, we will always find a way to generate fear out of anything, until you realize that the universe is not the way we perceive it to be, and that maybe there's a dimensional perception about us manifesting on physical Earth. Until that moment, you'll always have someone generating an easy concept that is just fear-based about that reality. And I have my own awareness to know that my soul put me here, and I have a purpose, and I'm growing, and and we're all doing it. We're all evolving, but you come here on purpose. That's my rant.
I understand what you're saying. It's a type of attachment to stay attached to fear, and we're supposed to be really moving towards love and unity here. So if you're entering that experience with fear, I believe it's going to be reflected back to you. And I heard what you said earlier about being able to control your own environment, and Jesus talked about that, about being able to say to a mountain, cast yourself into the sea and it be done. So that's our true nature, our true form. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I love where we are right now, and I'm going to bring us back here in just a second, but I want to rewind for a moment, because I don't interrupt our guest, Jeff, but I think I might maybe start doing that at some point, because you started off earlier talking about screen memory, and, Stuart and I know what that is, but some of the people out there might not, and some of them might be, it'd be good for them to hear. Can you go over what is the screen memory, or an example of what you were talking about there?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you got it. So, it took me a while to understand that part. So the entities, let's just say that the entity's world is much more extreme than the person who hasn't interacted with them doesn't get how you might never be normal ever again. So there's a desire on both parties. The individual having contact might not be aware of the own oversoul that's saying, don't disrupt my guy's life to live a normal life, to still develop, because he has to go to school or go to work and live a normal life. And so when the entities are interacting with humans, they absolutely do not get that altered life or that altered timeline because you now are so deeply affected by the aliens. They cover up the interaction. And they do it by putting in false memories and or a memory at the time that is just covering up the actual interaction. And for me at the time, I was 17 years old and I was in agreement with the gray aliens to do this experiment, or as I say in the book, it's to discover my soul. So that we were on a path for that to happen. And I interacted with an entity in the forest. I actually got pulled out from my home while I was trying to go to bed. And basically, I had been altered when I interacted with the entity. And then it was basically saying, we're coming soon. And anyway, it was a small interaction. But when he tells me to leave, I go sit on a bench in the park, not knowing I already had contact. And I decide to go home. And when I do, there's a screen memory put into my head of that location and that I'd seen an owl there and that there was an owl in the trees and the owl had highly reflective eyes. But in the moment, I have no inclination to discover, to learn, or to think, or to dwell on that. I have like an almost a subconscious thing that says, "Don't look at this." And so there's a screen memory covering up the interaction, and then I also have my own subconscious thing that I don't want to look at that, and that's it. And it gets buried in my history. And it's the screen memory that actually helps me discover what happened, because there was a whole process there. It's all laid out in my book. I'm very public about that, but it's just the process that I was guided to look at that screen memory 20 something years later. And that's what starts to unravel it, is when I go back to that location and bring up the screen memory, it actually had all the feelings that it was covering up. And all of a sudden I could feel that something had happened to me in that location. And that was the beginning of unraveling everything.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So now to bring us back to where we were with the fear-based thing, just because I have a question about that too. I briefed Stuart about this earlier, so he knows what we're talking about. But you had gone on other podcasts and talked about stuff that you said that you don't really like to talk about, but if the podcaster does it, you're fine with it. We're not really trying to go to that place or to be overly fearful or whatnot.
Yeah.
But with the idea, is there any indication that, and people can probably figure out what we're talking about, right? But is there any indication that those things might that you were shown be taking place in our lifetime, or could it have been they just wanted to get your reaction to something so catastrophic, as it were?
Yeah, right. Could they be like apocalypse scientists? Could they be, putting images in people's heads, and then maybe that's a form of motivation? And I think I talk like that in my book, that that to some degree, having a image of a meteor coming seems to be a form of motivation. They knew that it would unravel everything, and so there's this kind of force in me to move fast because there was this image of a meteor coming, and so it's kind of like they know that motivates the human, and I agree with that. The problem is some of this information is lining up with some government content and stuff like that. So then I get like, holy crap, it's making it more and more real. And I'm not the only contactee with content like that now too. And so listen, I'm personally in the belief that this is coming out in our lifetime, and I'm convinced it's coming out soon. And I'm convinced of that. I don't have any timelines. I'm not told dates. I'm not told content like that. So I can't provide that. But I believe in this 2027 strictly from Jean Ramirez, the CIA guy, who said 2017 to 2027 was a 10-year soft disclosure program. And that makes sense. That makes sense why they're motivated to be speaking about it, and also why they're humming and hawing about it, because they're waiting for 2027 maybe. But what happens at that time, I don't know. And I can't speak to what I think would happen. I know that they're concerned, and I keep seeing evidence for that concern, whether that's from other contactees or it's just from what we're doing to the planet in general. But they're concerned. They're concerned for the life, functioning property of our planet, and so that concern is driving them And so there's a picture here that I just looks very real, and so I believe that picture because of what they've told me. Yeah, could this all just be a big game? I mean, it seems unlikely that the government would be involved if that was a big game. Like, there's information that I know that they have about some of this content. So that doesn't make any sense. That's where it starts making sense. It would make sense if the government knew nothing about it and I never heard anything like that. And then only contactees are given, apocalyptic visions. Yeah, then you'd start thinking it's just the entities playing with people's heads. And it maybe if that was also the case in an era where we weren't, over booming with a population. But now things do look like there's reason to be concerned, and that's how they talked in the contact events. So it just seems all very real to me.
Interesting.
If these grey aliens are actually nature spirits, a la kind of Jacques Vallée, then it makes sense they'd be concerned about the condition of the planet. It also makes sense that they'd be concerned about our use of nuclear technology.
Yeah.
So it might be a warning, but it's also a kind of a form of attachment. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't care about the Earth. I certainly do care about it. But there's also, I can see a confluence here between screen memories, which are artificial, and implanting these possible future scenarios, which might not be real either. So I feel like they're trying to steer us in a certain direction, and that might be for a positive reason or a negative reason. But and I'm not trying to exhibit skepticism here. I'm more trying to drill down into the motivation, what they're trying to do here.
Yeah. 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 So I actually, I just, in this new video I just released, the timing is really good. I actually dissect the three reasons, the three reasons I'm convinced that what's going on is benevolent. And number one is I trust them. So, and I actually just say it straight up. I'm embedded with trusting them. And when you look at my story, it makes sense. This crazy event happened, this very, abandon your life, get rid of everything you own, and it turned out to be tied to them, is a very weird and harsh thing to do. And then all of a sudden I'm traveling and I'm having this time of my life, having an experience or life experiences I wouldn't have put myself through on my own. And they were responsible for it. And it was spiritual. It was a time of evolution. And then they also brought me back. So they also instigated me coming back into my reality, and I ended up with this beautiful wife, this beautiful woman, and she ended up being my wife. And then she brought me to a Sadguru. So that brought me to the Vedic philosophy, or the Vedic path I take, and that's with meditation. So they did that. So then I'm embedded with like they know what they're doing, and they actually, and yeah, they have a self-vested interest like humans, and like we do in our lives. We're living out our physical existence, and we want our lives to be good for the best we can make it for ourselves. And so I do believe that when they're interacting with us, at least for me, it was for the best of both parties, even when I couldn't understand it. And so my book is filled with me fighting with them at times, and it's when I didn't know what was going on, and they have no ability to tell me. And if they did, they could impact, the trajectory. So that's one, was that I'm embedded with trusting them. Number two, can't remember number two, but number three was definitely they're from the future. And this is not in the book, but it's part of my, ongoing experience with the UAPs that I'm able to, interact with. And this information is all kind of lining up to big picture that they're from the future, and meaning the way they interact with us is not going to be linear the way we think it will be. And so, that matters then. It matters about their behavior. It matters the way they're interacting with us. It matters that why they're doing some things and why they're not doing other things, because they can see the future outcome of things, and they recognize what could happen and what won't happen. And so instead of thinking of it that they're from our linear time and they're being very secretive, they're actually in a different time, and they're coming back and they're interjecting and they're putting something in, they're putting a contact event in, and then they're watching the outcome, the outshoot of that contact event. That's the perspective I think they now have. And they're looking at things from a future perspective and then watching as it unfolds, creating an alternate timeline. I think that's it sounds bonkers, but I'm pretty certain that's exactly what's going on. They're creating timelines and they're trying to curb and affect things. So I know that that's their perspective because that makes my own contact events now make sense. So we're dealing with things that are very challenging. I wish I could remember the second point. It's all off the top of my head, but it's all in the video. And I'm embedded with a perspective that I kind of just say it. The entities I know are life preservers and nature lovers. And there might be a bit of a twist where they see us not as that. And though you might be, and I might be, and we might be, as a collective, we might be not displaying that enough to the degree where they need to interact with us. And so that's where I think all the kind of, where everything comes, the reason they're even touching or even interacting with our reality is for these purposes. And then they have a bit of a hard game trying to figure out how to interact with us and to change things. So that's what I see. I see a species that is, maybe sharing the planet with us and trying to change things on a species that finds it difficult to do that with. Right.
Thank you, Jeff. Mike, can we perhaps link that video Jeff's referencing, his new video, at the bottom of this video for our audience to watch?
Yeah.
Yeah, you read my mind. Jeff, do send me that link and we'll put that in the description for sure.
Yeah, through the afterwards through an email. Is that?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll do. Yeah. It's actually titled "Our Gray Aliens, the Fae, the Little People, and the DMT Elf Machines."
Oh,
and,
wow.
Yeah. So I go right into Jack Villet's content and tear it all and match it with all my content, and it's pretty fascinating, and I'm convinced this is where we're going with it all. Yeah.
All right. Well, just that sentence tied together like 3 or 4 of our previous conversations too. So this is pretty wild how this is going out.
Awesome.
So okay, I have a couple other questions to ask, and before I can really do that, I'm going to ask you to tell a little bit of your story so it makes sense for people who maybe don't know it before I ask those questions. So if you can kind of go in outline like the time that you were, I believe, walking, I forget where it was, but you were walking like sort of near a schoolyard or something, and then you're sort of frozen there. And then there was another time when you were out with a friend in nature, and I think he maybe got frozen, but you didn't. I have questions about both of those, but before I just throw them out there, if you can give a little backstory on that.
Sure. Okay. So you want me to just describe those two moments? Is that what you're saying?
If you can, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Excuse me. The first one you're referring to is my what I call the first contact event. I had these childhood contact events, but I call this number one because it's where the relationship starts. So it's really where the story starts. So it's the first contact event, and it's 16. It's 1993, and it's in Coquitlam. So I live here in Vancouver, and it's the suburbs of Vancouver, in Coquitlam. And I was coming home, and presumably on a weekend night, that would make the most sense for that moment. And but I do recall actually, basically I could have taken a shortcut through the park and didn't want to because I was too young and I was a bit scared to do that, and decided to go on the streets, but I was holding into the darker parts because I was scared of getting jumped. I'd actually already been jumped on the streets of Coquitlam. So I was coming home and I was crossing a schoolyard. Yeah, it was my old junior high school, and it was my old junior high school at the time. And I was cutting through the field as a shortcut. And, I'm in this dark part where there's no lights. There's just street lights kind of, 500 meters away kind of thing. And it's everything's dark. And literally an entity falls from the sky. And it lands on its 2 feet to my left, kind of like angle to my left. And I'm terrified and I run. And now all the words I'm saying to you are longer than how quick that moment was. So it's all kind of in a flash. So this thing lands, and while it does, it seems to, I now interpret it as their frequency, their dimensional reality, or their reality frequency is kind of there now. It's like I think the craft does this. There's a craft, I'll learn at the moment in time that there's a craft in the sky. And I'm convinced the craft creates reality bubbles. They create bubbles. And so I'm now in their world and their frequency, and I have all the childhood contact events opened up at the same time. Now I have no way of processing it, but the feelings, the imprints are all there. And all I know is I'm uncomfortable and I'm terrified and I'm trying to run very quickly and I'm frozen. And I now also interpret this moment as being caught outside of time. And the entity is able to move around. And so I'm frozen and I've got this rush of terror and it's trying to interact with me. And so, yeah, it says, uh, uh, basically it's I'm trying to get out of what's happening to me and it's trying to interact with me, and it says you won't be able to get out of that no matter how hard you try. And then when I try harder, because I'm terrified of what's going on, it's trying to calm me down. It's okay, we won't harm you. And it's all telepathy, right? It's the words I'm telling you aren't exactly what it was. It's like funneled. When I say funneled, it's like directed at you. It's like emotional imprints that are very distinct that do easily translate to my words, but it's definitely like, targeted imprints, and they're being imprinted at me. And this thing is saying, it's okay, we're not going to harm you. And it's kind of like it's trying to calm me down. And when I do, and I have enough attention to start looking, and I look at it, it's a terrifying face. Its angles, its eyes are down pointed in its jaw and its structure, and the reflection off the eyes and everything. It's just, and then but then I guess I was kind of connecting with it in that moment. And when that happens, there's kind of a flood of recall about the childhood contact events. And then it actually asks me, come with us to our ship. And it basically talks like that, like that's the language. And I'm not responding. And then there's a kind of a memory of the childhood contact events of being on craft and being safe. And that I wasn't hurt, and that, it wasn't harmful. And then it reminds me again, come with us to our ship. We'll bring you right back. And it wanted my permission. And then I agreed. And in that moment, there's a flash, and I'm taken up into the object. Do you want me to go to the next contact event?
So before we do that, if we could take a pause here, because this is one of the questions I had was, so with your being frozen, I don't know if this is probably not going to come out right, but in terms of frozen, was it frozen time, or was it just you that was frozen? Was it your surroundings? Like, was there wind or tree movements, or I'm trying to understand if it was isolated to you, or if it was the entire area, like potentially the whole city you were in. Like, how can you?
Yeah. Okay. So this is great, and I actually. This is what the video series covers, is how they did it, because I'm too stumped by the how about, waking up to this stuff all these years later is awful. And so you kind of like need to create resolution. You didn't understand it all. And the entities give me lots of hints in the way all the other contact events rolled out. And I'm convinced that there's a localized time bubble. So on the outside, you wouldn't see anything. There would be nothing. And I don't actually recall there's no memory here of what the environment was doing. And so, yeah, I don't really know. In other contact events, that is obvious. There's something going on in the environment where, I think in the 7th, I say, it's as if they had put everything to stillness all around me, like everyone's purposely sleeping, and as if they calm everything down. And now I'm understanding that's the timelessness state. They froze everything around me, and now the craft lets me walk around. And the craft is a god craft. It's a consciousness craft. So it's able to do these magical things, right? Like make you able to walk around while everyone else is frozen outside of time, like my buddy in the 6th contact event. So yeah, it's very meticulous. Now, in that video, I explore, the first contact event is complicated because it sounds, you have to see my reasoning, and it's too much detail to go into here, but I'm 100% convinced that beam, now that I'm taken up in, is in time. I'm back in time. And there's a reason they would do that. But it also explains my emotional states. Why on the field I'm terrified, and all of a sudden I'm being picked up in the craft and I'm elated, and I'm in this having this experience in the beam as I'm being picked up. And it explains also, while I'm being picked up, I have physical sensations. So I can feel the air in the environment. And so you're right, there's a sensation going on there. And I interpret that as my frontal lobe processing environmental information. I'm back into time. And then when I'm in the craft, I'm outside of time. Now, it sounds complicated because that's how this stuff is. But if you notice, the dream I have is me floating up, right? It's floating above the treetops. So it kind of, this moment in time, imprints itself as the anchor for what had happened, and I'll remember it all these years later, and so it becomes like an anchor for what occurred that night. But all the field is outside of time, and then Incraft is outside time as well too. And yeah, it's very complicated, but I'm convinced this is how it rolls. And yeah, and they do these things to manage the mind and the psyche of the human at the same time.
Okay. Stuart, do you have anything before we jump into the next one?
Yeah, that made sense to me, because if you're having an experience outside of time, once you return back to time, you need a way to interpret or view that. So it's going to be it's hard to express. I know what you're saying. And I've had some kind of experiences, not to the degree that you're describing, enough that I've got a relationship and an understanding of what you're talking about. So I can actually grasp what you're describing here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's great. Like, the best way to frame it is, like, it's the reason you would do something like that is to ground the psyche, because what would happen to me is I would see the oversoul in that contact event, and I ended up with these extreme feelings. But then you have nothing to grab it onto, and it's a complex game of the mind and how the mind interprets timelessness information. And as a 16-year-old, I would have no ability to hold on to it. But then there's this dream that dumps all the feelings into it, and that's a way for my psyche to grab onto it and then to let it go, so I can move on with my life. And now there's an imprint, and something bizarre happened that night, and I felt it, but I would never put it together until all these years later.
Well, there's a parallel in the way you're trying to describe telepathic communication in words. So I see a parallel there. It's a way to try and interpret and bring it into this reality.
Yeah, yeah, good point.
Okay, so earlier you were talking about your buddy, and that was the next one that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
So if you can go into that a little bit.
Yeah, the sixth contact event. So now I interpret this as so I had what they were going to do with me, the consciousness experiment that was going to alter my life and have me to go traveling. Needed me, all these years later, I can interpret it this way, needed me to abandon my teenage identity. My teenager identity was the pot smoking band guy, right? And kind of a skater punk. That's what I was at the time. And I had just finally made a decision to stop smoking pot. They literally brought pot smoking up in my contact event, my fourth contact event. It gets brought up, and they don't want me to do it, but they can't control me, and they don't control me, but they're telling me, like, we don't want you to do this. And I eventually stopped doing it. When I stopped doing it, like a week later, is another contact event. And I now see that is all kind of linked, as they're trying to confirm what they gave me, this energy, this stuff they had done to me is all still preserved for them for the consciousness event that will unfold in a couple months. So this is the sixth contact event, and I'm hiking with my friend, and we are going up to a kind of a mountain, or kind of a small knoll. It's called the High Knoll in Minnetonka Park in Port Coquitlam in BC. And hiking up, and yeah, he's caught off guard by something in the forest. So he's turned to look at it, whatever this thing is, and I don't see it. And then time is frozen. That moment, and I'm now 100% convinced time is frozen. And this was the first evidence I ever had that this is what's going on, freezing time. And so I'm now, and it's also the other evidence that they're using a frequency. So there's two things going on: freezing time, but then they have an alternate reality frequency, a thing that keeps your awareness of them out until you're in it. And once you're in it, you have all the memories of the previous contact events. So it's the way this was happening. They're bringing in a frequency, and then you have memories of the alternate other contact events, or your history with them, once you're in quote unquote their reality. So they freeze time, and I don't know who this entity is, and I'm freaking terrified. So this thing flies. So I'm frozen time, and I'm looking at my buddy. Now I'm kind of unconscious, but because I'm interacting with them outside of time already, I kind of like have a bit of awareness now. There's like a familiarity occurring with this dimensional state. This freaking thing, it's tall too. It's a tall gray alien, and it flies up to my buddy's face, like it flies up, and I'm panicking inside this frozen state. And I'm literally saying, "Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit!" And I don't even know how to compute it. And it's like right into his face, and it's looking into his eyes. And then I know what's going to happen. That thing is going to come here and look at me in my eyes, or do the same thing, and it does. And I'm like, nah, and I'm kind of terrified and screaming in my world, in my mind, without being able to say anything, and it flies right up to my face, and it kind of goes in, and there's a feeling of it looking for me, or looking for what it's looking for, and then it kind of says, this is the one. And then there's a sensation of it tapping me. Now I have no memory of a physical tap, but that's the frequency. So the thing literally like taps some part of my psyche and brings me into its world, or brings me into that frequency, and boom, I now have all the memories of the previous contact events. It's like, oh, and all of a sudden this guy who's terrified is like, oh yeah, right, okay. And then, because I actually was enjoying my time with these guys, and that also, these different states, freezing time, and your brain not fully being functioning because you're in an altered state, explains why you kind of go from this terror to, oh yeah, right, hey, this is actually okay. I actually love hanging out with these guys, or you're kind of saying it that way in some kind of colloquial way in your mind, and that's it. I start walking back with the entity, but when I do, I turn around to look at my buddy, and I say, "What are you going to do with him?" And his eyes are open, and he's staring blankly out without even looking at me. And he says, "Don't worry, we won't be long." The alien says that, and so I just follow him. But like, that is what this is. This is outside time, because his eyes were open. So, had he just been frozen, paralyzed, his eyes would have dried out, and that would have turned into a whole thing when we had been talking normally. And no, that's not what happens. His eyes stay open the entire contact event while I'm in a craft, and I come back, and he's still there in his same position with his eyes open. So this was frozen time. And I had that memory, and I was talking about it publicly at UFO groups. So all that stuff is recorded on YouTube channels. And without understanding any of this time freezing thing, because I didn't know that was a part of this, or could be a part of this, or a reality. And I never understood that part. I have this memory of this guy with his eyes open, and I'm able to walk out, and we had this interaction the way it goes, and I don't understand it. And I just talked like that. And now all these years later, it's not making sense. There's timelessness. It's why my brain isn't retaining any of the information of the contact event. It's because they're doing it to a portion of my consciousness. And after that, you just walk up the hill, and you feel something that occurred. And in that moment, it's all recorded in the book. Yeah, I have an extraordinary, pronounced divine joy. That's it. It's just this joy that is extraordinary. And my friend even had it, and we got recorded in a journal. All these years later, I was able to put it all together. But so both of those are interesting. You bring them up because they're both, for me, evidence for my own self that what we're dealing with here is outside of time.
Okay, so here's my question.
Yeah.
When you, it sounds like both of you and your friend, we'll just use the term frozen, the gray alien first goes up to your friend and looks or scans or whatever, and then goes up to you.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until they looked at you or through you or whatever, and they said, "This is the one."
Yeah.
Why is it, do you think, that they couldn't recognize you just by your appearance? I'm guessing your friend doesn't look like an identical twin to you.
Right.
So why is it that they couldn't see you right away, or they looked at him like?
Yeah.
What can you?
Great question. Now, the first thing is this entity. I don't know who this entity is.
Okay.
So, in this video series I I'm putting out, I actually explore why was like, because I dealt typically with an elder, with a 4 foot tall little gray alien, and this was the main alien that I'll deal with practically throughout my life. And out of nowhere, in the sixth contact event, is a tall gray alien, and yeah, and I had to do my work to understand some of this. I'm convinced that the timing of the moment of having changed my life had them kind of need to rush in, and the elder, and for whatever reason too, that entity is in the forest and he's walking, right? So there's flexibility needed. And my little 4 foot tall alien, I don't know if she had, like, there's something like that where they needed this guy right here. And yeah, he didn't know who I was. It's actually fascinating. And I have gone down the the road trying to understand what's going on here, because why did it roll out the way it did? Yeah, and there's something very fascinating here where he didn't know who I was and he had to get into us to determine who was who. And also, why didn't the craft know? Why wasn't there other details there? And yeah, I think there's something along the lines of they needed to interact with me. They needed to interact with me in that moment. It was maybe the best way to hide it, cover it up, and they needed someone flexible and like a tall gray alien who could walk in the forest. And yeah, and then in that moment, that's they didn't know, that guy didn't know who I was, and he had to go about it the way he did. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
Interesting.
From your friend's point of view during that experience, was there no break in time? For all he knew, it was just a continuation without that occurrence in the middle.
So there's something really weird here where you probably can't remember a hike you did when you were 19 years old, and I can't either. But what's really bizarre is around most of the contact events, I have pretty clear memories around the erroneous information out, like the things that happened around that contact event. Like, because there was this altered state, maybe my oversoul or some part of me becomes hyper vigilant. Like, I remember the sleeping position I had in my eighth contact event on Hornby Island. Like, who the hell remembers the position they slept in? Like, you know what I mean? But why am I retaining that memory? And all these years later, I'm now understanding, okay, because I had this ultra consciousness experience. Something has me absorbing the information, even though it looks mundane in the moment. I'm hyper absorbing it. And that's what happens here. I actually remember my friend doing this. I remember this moment, and I remember, yeah, he thought he zoned out. He said, "Oh, I thought I zoned out." He's like, I thought something caught my attention, and that's it. He thought he zoned out, and I kind of didn't give it any energy, but I remember it. I remember him turning to look, and then that's it. And he snaps out of it and says, "I don't know, something zoned out. I zoned out," and that's it. And he gets back up, and we go on our hike, and we feel amazing on the top of the hill, and we can't put two and two together.
Have you guys ever talked about it since then, or?
No, only a couple of my friends I've kept in touch with, and yeah, I don't know. It's 20 years later, people are. Yeah. I don't know. I've tried to get in touch with them. I have several times, actually. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Just curious.
Yeah, I know. I like that idea too. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious too. Like, I'm becoming more non-physical and esoteric by Stuart's. I don't know what the word is. Inspiration and right. The conversations we're having. But I started all this, from a nuts and bolts perspective. I'm a right. investigator and such. So I'm curious, like, when you're in the presence of the Greys or on their ship, do you have any recollection or description of like senses such as taste and smell, or anything different about it that was notable versus right now?
No, not like I've never recorded any smells. Well, the cow. So there is a 10th contact event that but it's the cow. So there's a dead cow on the craft. And but and I record the only smells or sensations are often within the environments I just came out of. So they're not really, I'm not recording anything specific about what it smells like on craft. Or what it but the temperature changes. So my 10th contact event, it's in the middle of summer, and then I get into craft and it's cooler. Or in one of the contact events, they kept the door open and it was hot and humid summer, and all the humid heat is in the craft and it's a part of the memory. And stuff like that. But as far as like smells of them or anything like that, and in part, right, I'm pretty certain the stasis. This is how I frame it in this kind of new information I'm coming out with. That there's pretty good evidence for me from some of the contact events that my body is in stasis when the contact events are in timelessness. So, and I don't record any of the, any of the external sensations, what I'm, smelling or feeling on the skin. There's nothing quite like that going on. And yeah, I'm in this type of stasis state. And then I have evidence for that in my contact events because at times they're trying to do things and I'm convinced they're doing it because my body's in stasis. And so I'm aware and awake while everything's frozen. So there's no like sensorial content going on in my body, and then that doesn't retain anything in the memories. But not all of them are like that because not all of them are outside time. But yeah, I don't really have any particular smells except for the one I mentioned. Yeah, that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's just curiosity.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the other questions I have is sort of on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of physicality, with 10 being, I don't know, I guess, I don't know how to, I guess 1 would be physical, 10 would be non-physical. How about that? A scale of 1 to 10. All of them or some of them, how physical is this stuff?
Oh, it is 100% physical. It is also 100% dimensional. It's the problem is that we are too.
Yeah.
So we have a frame of reference of reality that's skewed. That's the truth. And then they are the best is 50-50. That's how I like to think of it. It's 50-50. It's both realities are very, very real. And the problem is that humans who are a physical based species have already been creating dialogue and pictures and stories about interacting with great aliens from a skewed perspective, right? So yeah, there's a dimensional entity sitting behind that form 100%. And it's aware that it can't show itself completely without frying the brain of the human. So you have all these stories of physical based creatures, but the non-physical stories are starting to come out and they're taking hold because we're starting to believe maybe some of this content is non-physical. And that's exactly what this is. It's a 50-50. We're dealing with a actual biological species that has DNA that 100% can phase, can turn into plasma orbs, and its original content, its original form might just be as a plasma entity. And then, yeah, it's putting itself into bodies. And I was explained this by the elder directly, the entity I deal with. They're suits. Yeah, they're the same way you wear pajamas and you wear a suit. You don't get uncomfortable with it. It's part of your life. And that's how she frames it. She has a normal state, which is her plasma state. And then yeah, she wears this. She wears a suit. She wears a body. And that's not uncomfortable for her. It's a body that she likes to have and to exist in.
My astral projection experiences demonstrated that to me. So I saw that my body is really just like a suit that I wear. It sounds weird to say that, Mike, I know, but it was a direct experience that I had more than once. So I know that as a knowing for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's the state, right? Like what you're saying something so important. You didn't read about it somewhere and you're theorizing. Yeah. You had a personal experience that altered your perception of reality. And now you have an ability to comprehend something a bit larger that's going up in expansiveness. And that's what they're up against, these aliens, right? Because if you do that prematurely to the human, it freaks them out and it can cause damage. So people need these type of experiences, but they need them naturally on their own. And so the aliens are living in that type of state of detachment from the physical. But humans need to kind of get on board is what it is. And so you kind of provided a perfect example of that, an out-of-body experience. It's great. Yeah.
Well, in my case, I was trying to initiate this experience. So I was going into it with that intention. So when Beautiful. It occurred, I was like, okay, right, this is definitely real. People had told me this is real. Now I've done it and seen it for myself. So
Beautiful.
It was almost it's almost a scientific aspect to it. I read how to do it. Other people told me how to do it. I was able to duplicate the experience. I've done it more than once. So, but if I hadn't been expecting that and I suddenly found myself outside my body looking at myself, I would have thought, what on earth is happening right now? But with
Right.
my situation, I tried to do it and I saw, okay, this is real. And I did it more than once.
Love it. Yeah, it's great.
So, Jeff, what would your position be on the idea that's been presented that, let's say, the U.S. government, potentially other governments too, but U.S. government has biologics, and yeah, that's an interesting term that may or may not mean this, but let's just play pretend and say it means a full-bodied alien thing, with the idea that you're presenting that they're primarily like a plasma form. Is that possible? Could we have a full body of an alien, and if so, like, why can't that alien morph itself back into plasma and just go back to wherever it came from?
Oh, they want us to discover them. Yeah, so they definitely are leaving bodies behind, and yeah, they want to do that. They are 100% detached, so they're like, okay, great, you're gonna go in that craft, and they're doing the crashes on purpose. And if they make up a story that they're not, it's because the human brain can't wrap their heads around what's going on here, the large scale picture of this transformation that's about to occur. So they're seeding. They're definitely seeding, and they're giving those crashes. I mean, if you really look at it, they'd be stupid entities, right? If they were just crashing all over the place, and also leaving the drivers behind. Yeah, they really, like, this is all on purpose. Everything I know from the entities is all very planned and on purpose. And we also have tales from Lua Elizondo, right? They leave full body crafts behind. They literally leave the craft. Here you go, humans, and they can look at it and be in it themselves. So yeah, they are definitely leaving everything behind, and they give us the bodies. I don't doubt that at all. And yeah, and then the human can study them and to learn, and I'm pretty certain it's all to bring that stuff closer to us, so we end up learning and we end up evolving, or maybe feeling less fear. Who knows what's really going on there? But yeah, I don't doubt that they have biologics at all that makes a lot of sense. They have full bodies, and the aliens want us to have those bodies, and that's why we have them.
Mike, Jeff mentioned the cow earlier, and this has come up in another discussion we had where I wondered if the cow had become sacred in some cultures because of its potential connection to these beings.
Interesting. Linda Moulton Howe, actually, her research is the best on cattle mutilations. Apparently, India is the only one who never has cattle mutilations.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah, fascinating, eh?
Didn't
But
know
they worship their cows, right? So that's very interesting when you think about that, right? They worship cows, and so I I don't know. Again, if you think about things from a future perspective and timelines and agreements and the afterlife and all that kind of stuff, then an idea that they're mutilating cows that we already would mutilate anyway, mutilation is on the timeline of that cow, then they're taking that cow. And then I don't know what they're doing. I don't have any of the background or knowledge. I'd love to maybe go down this research one day, but I don't know what they're doing with the cows, but they were showing me that they were responsible, at least for some. I can't speak for everything, obviously, but cattle mutilations is tied with these entities. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, to go back to what you were just saying, what do you think about the idea? Like, I've heard multiple times now, and it seems to be a newer emerging motif, as it were, where we potentially will call in the craft, and if we can't get it to land, we'll shoot it down.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good thing to do, by the way.
Right.
But with the idea that, let's just say that we are shooting them down.
Right.
And what you were just saying, are we really shooting them down, or
Right.
is it like, let's just make them think they're shooting it down type
Right.
of thing? Like, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah. Like, first off, do we have evidence? I know they said this, but do we have evidence
Good point.
Yeah, that they're actually doing that? I maybe that's their intention and they haven't been able to yet. Like, I know it's pretty awful, right? Everyone who's involved with the CE5, it's all very loving for them, right? And then you have this tale where they're doing it and they're shooting them down. Yeah, I mean, the entities I know are that advanced. So if they're doing something, they're letting us do it. And, yeah, then we take the parts and we learn. And, yeah, And the reason they would do that too and have to do that is because the entities won't interact with us because we're in a different dimension, right? And they can damage themselves. And so there's degrees of entities that can and can't be with us because they can damage themselves. So to some degree, an idea where we have to be, these brutes, maybe they by shooting these crafts down, they maybe recognize that or something. I don't know the details there. I don't know what's going on there, but anything that we can't do anything to them. That's the scale I know we're up against. Where they're so advanced, and if we've done something, they want us to see that, and they want us to do it for us to learn in the process.
Okay, yeah. I mean, as far as I know, there's no real evidence other than somebody saying that it happens.
Yeah.
But I mean, no offense to you or any other experiencer, but for a lot of the times, not always, but a lot of the times, that's all the evidence that we potentially have as well.
Yeah, right.
So I wouldn't necessarily just completely discount it. And one of the folks that we talked to mentioned something. I don't know if it ever made it out publicly, but they mentioned something about like, don't shoot at them or kind of thing, and they would be in a position to sort of know something. So I'm inclined to believe that we absolutely try. I don't know if we're successful, but I'm sure that we try to
shoot at them. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, so I mean, yeah. If we're going down the avenue of what we should and shouldn't do, yeah, I think you're right. I think we shouldn't do that. I agree, but I think we're already that species who does that anyway. So I don't think they're going to be like, oh, they've now changed their ways. No, I think that they know we are a warmongering species, and that's why there's all this struggle that we're having right now as it is with them. And I think they get that part about us. But I agree. I think that's the problem here. I think that this happened with the drones, right? I am more than convinced the drones were these guys, were these ability to morph and mimic and shapeshift. And then once we had them all over the news, we now then had people firing guns at them. Yeah. So I think that they recognize already that this is our nature to we don't know what we're looking at. We want to kill it. And but yeah, I say we shouldn't do that, but I don't know that matters.
Yeah, good point. So, Stuart, before I take us down into the weeds, do you want to go anywhere in the weeds?
Oh, I'm always I dwell in the weeds. It's been amazing, Jeff. It's provoked so many ideas, and I'm really interested in what you got to say. Thanks for sharing. Where are you heading now, Mike, with your questions?
Well, I mean, this is really off base, but I don't know why I'm compelled to ask it. I have a love-hate relationship with homeless people because of I live in a big city, and I deal with real property, as it were, and and I'm not talking about folks who live in vehicles. There's different levels of homelessness. What I'm talking about is people who live on the street, literally, they sleep on the street.
Oh yeah.
And just one thing I want to point out there is during the pandemic, there was a lot of homeless people taken in off the street and put into hotels. They wouldn't sleep in beds. They would sleep on the floor because the beds were too comfortable. They couldn't sleep in the softness. So that's an interesting point most people probably don't know. But what I want to ask you, Jeff, is, and I don't know if you necessarily were homeless when you started your journey, but it sounds like mostly or potentially maybe were. How many homeless folks did you interact with? And again, I mean, like on the street. What I'm trying to get to ultimately is I frequently think to myself, do I have it all wrong? Do they have it right? And I'm just wasting my time like doing the daily grind. Like, what's the spiritual level of like a general average homeless person? And that's where I want to go with this. Yeah,
good question. So, Kate, when I first started traveling, I didn't know what to do with myself. So I was in Victoria, BC, which is just out. It's on Vancouver Island, so just off of Vancouver, across the Georgia Strait. And so the first thing I did was I ended up going to soup kitchens there. And I was interacting with homeless people. And homeless people are, I mean, the reality is some of our circumstances maybe we take for granted, the way our lives rolled out. And for some people, they don't have that. And so they end up with thought patterns or behaviors that maybe work against them. and they don't know how to get out of that. And I have compassion for homeless people. A lot of the people I interacted with in that period, yeah, they were pretty broken. I would say they're pretty broken, and I was just trying to, be a light any way I could. I didn't know how to. I was a young kid at the time. I didn't really hang out with homeless people that much after that because, yeah, the vibe was actually just too heavy. It's too heavy. The vibe is heavy. And you try to be kind and stuff like that. And sometimes just being nice actually agitated them because that's not their world, right? And they have to fight sometimes. And so, yeah, homelessness is awful. It really is. Actually, what's not awful? Homelessness isn't awful. Purposelessness is awful, and it's purposelessness that was driving them, that drove their anger and drove their hatred. Because homes are you can make the stars your home, the forest your home, and that's what I ended up doing. I ended up making, I traveled, and I didn't feel like I was homeless. I felt like I was with God. I felt like I was finding my spirit and I was protected. And so I was living a very different life. And yeah, when I tried to share that with homeless people, you just do the best you can. But yeah, no, homeless people are uh, people who are in that scenario. Yeah, it's purposelessness that is actually breaking them, and our society really doesn't have a great way of helping people sometimes get out from that scenario either. So then they end up feeling they carry the victimization and they put it out on other people or put it out in their world, and that's yeah, it's unfortunate. And but yeah, I didn't feel like I was homeless. I felt like I was on an adventure, and I didn't really internalize being homeless. I felt like I was on a different type of mission, and that was its purpose. And that purpose guided everything that happened to me. So it's what guided me getting into houses and staying with people and living with them and being on couches with friends or people I'd meet that would become my friend. So if I was homeless, I feel like I wouldn't have done those types of things. And I was on a spiritual adventure, and it fueled those relationships that I made while traveling.
Mike, that was a great question and a beautiful answer, Jeff. And it made me think about what releasing attachments is. It's not only about releasing attachments to things, items, it's also about releasing attachments to concepts or ideas.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 100%. 100%. It's great.
Thank you, Jeff, for that too, because you just impacted me in a very powerful way. And I have there might be some people who listen to this conversation who will be working with or do work with directly with homeless people in one way or another. And you said one word that I think is going to change a lot of people's perceptions and such: purposefulness. Yeah. That, when you said that, it's like, oh my God, so many things just sort of fell into place for me. And for anyone out there who is working with them or trying to help them, keep that in mind and maybe try to give them a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
That's you hit it right there. And I've spent over a couple decades trying to figure out, how to solve that problem. And I just came to the conclusion that they just don't want help and they're all drug addicts and such. But I think you're onto something with that word.
Great. Yeah, that's great, Mike. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah.
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 Don't know why I asked that, but now
that's great.
Why. Now
it's all part of the story too, right? As I even explain it, it interlinks with what the entities did with me. So it's all part of the story, and I'm happy those types of questions get asked. Actually, yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So I sort of only have one more question here, but you had talked. I forget exactly what you said, but it had to do with DNA. And I think it had something to do with the effect that potentially some of our DNA might be from them, as it were, or whatnot, or altered in some way. So how many? Do you have any idea, like how many people might have altered DNA, and then is there any way to realize that or find out if you might be someone with altered DNA?
Yeah, my full belief is the human species, the Homo sapien, is a product of alien genetic manipulation. I believe that. And now, what degree are hybrids from the get-go? I think we're going to find that some of the species, some of the races of humans are actually types of genetic links with DNAs with other types of races, other types of species of aliens. So different species might have created, pockets of Neanderthals or pockets of Homo sapiens who were much more ancient, and then that creates certain genetic variations on our planet. and they did it on purpose. And now that's my belief. And the only one I have so far to the present knowledge is I'm 100% convinced the Celtic genetics is gray alien hybrids. At some point, that DNA was interlinked with the gray aliens. Now, them being a Fae and little people species all makes sense that there's that connection is being created. And I've actually found with most experiencers, not all, but most, have somewhere in their genealogy the Celtic Irish link. And so I consider that a hybridization. Then there's a further hybridization. Yeah. So then there appears to have been some type of program that does link up to modernization. So as if they have known about where this was going to go, and they've been spending generations altering DNA to link with them, to link with their species. So the bottom line is that at some point you're in the later generations, you're able to feel them, you're able to communicate with them, you're able to drive their crafts. So then that starts blowing out all the types of contact events you start getting, is people who are interlinked with the phenomenon. And I think that was all done on purpose. Now, how do you know? I think you know by them getting your attention and or your own interest. I think sometimes people feel it and they don't know where it comes from. And I communicate with several people who they bonded with that. They felt the Irish gene in them, and by actually going down the avenue of that Irish gene, they ended up with contact. So they ended up, they felt it. They didn't know what they felt, and they kind of relied on that, and it made contact happen for them. And I mean like a CE5 style, where it wasn't, a full abduction visitation type idea, but it was definitely a craft in their vicinity that other people saw and interacted with them. So I know for me that's where this is going. And I can't speak at all to numbers. I don't know. I don't fully understand the full picture, the big picture of what could be happening here. But I do know that the purpose of this was to get us to be linked to the phenomenon. And so that way we are doing what we're doing here. Like, right, this my interlinkage with it gives me the experience with them, and then allows me to talk about it in my realm and with my people and my world, and bring this information out. And it's because of their long-term plan through generations of altering DNA that allowed them to do that. And I think they saw all that in the making.
Wow.
I've got those Celtic genes myself.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. And well, you're on this podcast, aren't you? Those are not, see, all of this is it's much more purposeful, and we end up driving towards it. We have a part of us that wants to know or is curious about it. If you didn't have that DNA link, sometimes that's the reason you're not interested in this. You have a whole group of people, the population, who has no interest in this, and they hear about this content and they're repulsed, and they don't want anything to do with it. And we kind of scoff and think that they're they're closed-minded, but sometimes it's that they're not linked to it, and they don't understand it, and they don't want to go down that rabbit hole. And then you have the other individuals like us who, we don't know what it is. We want to know more, and we want to understand this, and it's because unconsciously you're linked to it and you don't know it.
So Jeff, thank you so much for visiting with us. It's been awesome, better than I was even thinking, actually. So I mean, thank you so much.
It's great. Yeah.
Before we ask you where folks can learn more about you and pick up a copy of your book and such, I've got one more sort of question for you. And first of all, I also want to say I admire your courage for coming forward and being so public, and I think that you're inspirational for other experiencers and such. So that's kind of where I want to sort of end it off with. Is like, what would your advice be to any experiencer out there who maybe is still grappling with this, or they're not sure what to make of this information, or is there any other type of messages or whatnot from the beings, as it were? What can you say to drop us some alpha for the experiencers out there, and hopefully inspire them to come forward, perhaps, or at least deal with it on their own?
Yeah, you got it. Hmm. So the best thing I can recommend for someone who's actually an experiencer right now is I give props to Oak and his crew who run the experiencer forum on Reddit. And and Jay King, I think Jay Christopher King runs the experiencer group as well too. I think it's the experiencergroup.org. And they run kind of groups for experiencers. And or you know, a UFO. I used a UFO group, and it was a local group here, Vancouver UFO, and that's where I started. I just started giving all my information to them, and at one contact event at a time. So the book is actually the product of me having been given the space to talk about every single contact event in detail, what happened to me, all the pictures, all the diagrams, all the language, everything was dissected, and that's what I think everyone needs who's had this type of contact. You need to talk it through, and I'll the hard honesty is that the world still isn't ready for experiencers. Yet there are many of us, and so there are safe places that didn't exist even 5 years ago. So the experiencer Reddit on experiencer forum on Reddit. So just put in experiencer and you'll get it. And very safe. It's monitored, so they take out anyone's. It's public, but they'll take out any backlash, and they're really really good at moderating it. And then the experiencer organization, the experiencergroup.org is another safe place that's private, and all you have to do is just sign up, and now you can be part of their forum and talk with them as well too. So these are great places to dissect your content and to share it with other people who allow the kind of free flow of ideas, because the entities can say many different things to many different people, and there can be many different types of contact, and something can be very unique about your story that other people need to be hearing. So it's very, I think it's important to get this content out, and I really wish there was a better system or better database, and it doesn't exist right now. So, but you're not alone. That's the main part. Yep.
Great, thanks so much.
Yeah.
So with that, where can people go to find out more about you or pick up a copy of your book? We're definitely going to put a link to your video, most recent, is in the descriptions as well.
So my website is my name, www.jeffselver.com. You can't see it on that screen there. So it's Jeff on my Zoom here. It says Jeff Selver. JEFFSELVER.com is my website. And my website is just a central location. It's got my book. It's got all my research I've been doing over the years on what happened to me, and all my videos, my YouTube channel, my Facebook page, all gets linked to there. So yeah, even forum Reddit posts that I make, I eventually put onto my website. So everything is there at jeffselver.com.
Great. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Jeff, I'm very grateful that you spoke to us today. Very beautiful. You give me a lot to think about. Thank you so much, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you, Stuart. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Mike, for having me. I really appreciate it, gentlemen. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Well, Reverend Stu, again, I think it's every time I was like, wow, we covered a lot of ground on that one for sure.
Yeah, some of these are complicated and sometimes touchy subjects, and I really appreciated how gracefully he navigated the questions. I'm really impressed, Mike.
Yeah, in part, I think that maybe you and myself, maybe we were thinking of a certain way about the questions, and he was just like, yeah, I didn't interpret it that way at all, or whatever the case may be. But I got the sense going into it that he'd be fine with those more difficult questions, and I love that he was, and he was as open to it.
That was a beautiful question you asked about the homeless people. I was a bit worried about where you were heading when you were asking us, like, where's Mike going? But by the end, I 100% understood, and you've expanded my consciousness through that little discussion there. Thank you.
Yeah, it wasn't a planned question at all. I just jotted it down while he was saying something, and I said from the start, I don't even know why I'm asking it. But after he answered, I realized why. And yeah, I think that I'm going to go off on a little quick tangent here too. I think that maybe came from when I was like 18 or so. I had moved away from my family with a couple of friends from high school, and we were in a beautiful town called San Clemente, which is not too far south of where I am right now. And I had sort of befriended a homeless guy named Steve, who voluntarily homeless, and he worked in the meat market. I mean, Steve, if you're still out there, reach out, I guess. I'd love to see where you're at right now. But he worked in the meat market, and he was doing very well, and he just gave it up. And he's like, forget this. I'm not going to live like in this rat race type of deal. And that was a long darn time ago, back in 95, 96, somewhere around there. So anyway, he was really the only person I ever met that was sort of grounded in a normal type of person, in as far as a street person, as it were. But I've often wondered about, like, maybe he's got it right, or maybe everybody out there has it right, and I'm the one wasting my time. So that's why I wanted to ask it and see, like, on a spiritual level, what those folks are like. And not surprisingly, I wasn't surprised by what Jeff said, but I was surprised by that one word, purposefulness. And I think that's potentially the linchpin for everyone out there who, no matter what you think about that topic, keep that in mind. That blew me away.
That was really powerful. I wasn't expecting that. And I love how with our interviews, they are very organic, where we have some questions, but then we get inspired to ask questions during the course of the conversation. That was a moment of inspiration, Mike.
Yeah, that was, I think, if we were to be officially a show, that was a showstopper moment for sure. That was great. So, yeah, awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I just, as usual, I got a lot to absorb, a lot of things I'll be thinking about for the next few weeks, and I would love to have him back on the show in the future if that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that we can arrange that as well. I mean, pretty much anyone we've talked to, I'm open to talking to again, and some of them we definitely have. There's a couple folks I can think of right now too that I want to reach out to and continue our conversations with as well. But with that said, also, if you out there want to join the conversation, or someone who would like to, do reach out to us. That is starting to happen a little bit more now, and I think it's awesome. People are reaching out to us. That's great. As long as you're mostly on topic, we'll likely say yes. But if you're don't have anything to do with the core, it might not be a fit. But nonetheless, it's great to be reached out to either way. And if you like these conversations, we've got a boatload of them, as we say. Check out the archives. I don't even know how many anymore, but I think you could probably binge us nonstop for a couple weeks now, easily. If you went from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 or whatever, we got a lot out there already.
Fantastic, Mike. I'm really enjoying this journey with you, as always. It's expanding my consciousness, our friendship, the way we ask these questions together. I like the dynamic. I like the guests we're having. I like all of it.
Likewise. And you're inspiring me too, man. I'm definitely becoming more esoteric and spiritual. And I'm noticing in my own investigations, I'm a little bit different than I was before. And I think whoever it is that I'm talking to appreciates that too, because I'm starting to hear more and more about, like, oh, wow, like, funny you should ask that, or it's interesting you say that because yada yada. So it's definitely rounding me out, I think, as an investigator as well as a person. And I think everybody should be their own investigator too. If the entire world becomes a UFO investigator, that's if you're occasionally I hear people say, like, oh, I want to be abducted, or I want to see an ET. Well, become an investigator. That's going to be the potentially number one way for that to happen. Because once you start, as Earl always said, once you start poking at the phenomenon, it will poke back at you.
Wow. Okay, that's a perfect place to end, Mike. I love that.
So hit that subscribe button. Thanks for sharing us everywhere too. Drop us a comment. Let us know what you think. Good, bad, or indifferent. We want to hear it all. We truly do. So thanks for joining us on this encounter, and we look forward to the next one.
Thank you. Much love as always.